Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 38th audio file in the audiocast series known as the Q News Patriot. I'm the Q News Patriot. My name is SGAnon. I have quite the file bringing to you this evening. As many of you are aware, I've had essentially nothing but time to research over the last 24 to 36 hours. I want to start the file off tonight by saying that I am overwhelmed at the love, support, encouragement shown to my family by each of you. You are the finest people alive, certainly some of. And I have been absolutely inundated with support, prayers, encouraging words. It makes things easier, doesn't it? We're all family. We're all in this together. If you emailed me in regards to attempting to support me monetarily, I'd like to tell you that I'll get to all of those emails in due time. But I believe your money would be much better served, donated more directly to the cause, such as with human trafficking organizations that, or anti-human trafficking organizations that are taking this fight to the front lines. Many of you are quite stubborn and insistent, and I will get to all emails in due time. But I'd like to highlight how unbelievably grateful I am for how all of you have sort of come together around my family and I in what has been a pretty difficult time. I don't discuss these things on air simply because my personal life struggles are likely the same as many of yours. And there is little to no benefit in relating to you the things that we deal with daily, as you know, most of them already. But the turn of events recently has provided some challenges for us and some opportunities for growth. And more than anything, it provided a conduit for each of you and myself and my family to connect in a very loving, unified way. I thank you for that. Over the last 24 hours, I've received more than 400 emails. I do ask that you be patient with me as I work my way through them. I will respond to each of them. I do not have anyone executively assisting me at this time, simply because I fancy myself being one of you, a working patriot, a loving husband and father, someone who wants to see this world changed for the better so the family he leaves behind or she leaves behind has a real chance, has a real opportunity to take this world and shape it and mold it into what it was always meant to be. And each of you out there, through your notes of encouragement and support, really restored much of my spiritual momentum. We are sort of co-creative in this dance, aren't we? I cannot thank each of you enough. That being said, I have the opportunity, because I have been pretty inert, to get deep into some research, some good old-fashioned decoding, some articles that certainly don't make front page news and are very difficult to find. I shouldn't say difficult to find, just require more effort and time to find and track down and read. And I think I have a pretty exciting status update to bring to each of you. So without further ado, let's get right to it. The situation with the worldwide military alliance is accelerating and becoming more public and more overt. We have military coalitions and joint operational task forces working together across several different continents at this time in simultaneous fashion to eliminate deep state military capability to eliminate deep state mercenary and warlord capability, and to eliminate storehouses, um, warehouses, things of this nature, in addition, over and above the main mission, which is purging the underground systems of the depravity and evil that exists there. We've discussed in recent files ongoing operations beneath the Caribbean basin, the South American continent, particularly pertaining to human and child trafficking, pertaining to the capture and exposure, well, I should say that in reverse, the exposure and capture of various Five Eyes military espionage assets, to include assets from the Israeli Mossad, the Chinese Communist Party, and the CIA. That process is only accelerating as we are seeing more and more um, interceptions being made at a publicly reported level by military vessels, Interpol task forces, things of this nature, in addition to local law enforcement that is empowered in certain key areas um, by their own military backing. We're actually seeing that happening right now within the continental United States in a very big way, and in a way that I believe is primarily being reported as hush hush in the media, but they're very, very well aware of what is going on. We're going to go through a series of a couple of different articles here after we discuss a little bit more about what's going on. But this entire operation, ladies and gentlemen, is a multi-layer, multi-dimensional special warfare situation where stings to draw out espionage assets, controlled opposition, enemy combatants, hidey holes, honeypots, localized area of political, financial corruption, things of this ilk, are all being drawn out into the light. The special warfare situation happening in the United States and in many theaters around the world is highlighting for all of us who the enemy is. We are forcing them to come out into the light. We're forcing them to show themselves. And we are taking them down. I reported several weeks back that U.S. National Guard and county and local level law enforcement in various areas were coordinating with one another to destroy human trafficking, prostitution, and sex slavery rings all around the United States, as well as to backtrace where those rings were funded from, how they were funded, what organizations, institutions, and individuals were part of the chain of custody along the way. And that has only been increasing. A January 26th article from newsjournalonline.com discusses a Daytona Beach man who was arrested and jailed on drug charges has now had human trafficking charges added to the list of offenses. The gentleman in question, charged with multiple felonies, including deriving support from proceeds of prostitution and 3 counts of human trafficking. The special investigation unit involved identified 3 people who said the individual in question, incarcerated, would beat them if they did not commit prostitution acts and give him the proceeds. Where did he go to acquire the prostitutes? Who were them? Who were they? Excuse me. These sorts of questions and others are part of what this is all about. Another interesting article, January 30th, 2023, just a couple of days ago, reads, a hotel chain said if a jury finds that it was complicit in sex trafficking, then that jury must also distribute blame to more than 3 dozen non-parties to the suit, including social media companies, police departments, a strip club, and an attorney for allowing an unnamed woman to be forced into commercial sex. These operations are happening at county and local levels, being informed in some instances by military capable intelligence. We are hunting them down. The issue of sex and labor trafficking in Alabama, a separate article from apr.org, January the 26th. The issue of sex and labor trafficking in Alabama will take center stage in Montgomery. The 9th Annual Human Trafficking Summit will feature speakers from law enforcement to victim support groups. The event is taking place just after West Alabama law officers arrested 15 people during an undercover sting operation. David Pinkleton is with the Alabama Human Trafficking Task Force and says trafficking victims in the state can be part of the illegal sex trade or forced to work in restaurants or factories. And unfortunately, this is a reality in our state. From the Southern District of Texas, press release from the United States Attorney's Office. I wonder where Huber's team of 470 is. It's a good possibility that they're working cases just like this. A National Human Trafficking Awareness Month comes to a close. As National Human Trafficking Awareness Month comes to a close, the Southern District of Texas has reaffirmed a commitment to working with federal, state, and local partners to combat human trafficking in all forms. Human trafficking is especially heinous. Our office will continue to use every available resource to charge those who cause imaginable harm and exploit and endanger some of the most vulnerable members of our society. Over the past year, the Southern District of Texas has charged approximately a dozen cases as part of the Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance and has multiple active investigations and ongoing prosecutions on several more. Just yesterday, a woman admitted to trafficking other women from a cantina bathroom, as well as sex trafficking a minor. She forced them into commercial sex and took money. If they refused, she threatened them with violence. The undercover operations demonstrate how law enforcement is making efforts in addition to recovering victims by trying to stop traffickers before they connect with actual children. The Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance will continue to be the gold standard for human trafficking task forces. The efforts of law enforcement, as well as the non-governmental organizations and others who provide victim services, are greatly appreciated. It takes all of us working together. From kwtx.com, an article on January the 26th. On January 12th and January 13th, Frisco police joined other local agencies in Operation Demand Suppression. Officials said the operation was fronted by the Department of Homeland Security as part of the Blue Campaign, a national campaign designed to educate the public and to recognize the indicators of human trafficking. 23 people have been arrested now following a multi-agency operation that focused on suppressing the demand for prostitution. We are seeing coordinated law enforcement actions all through our country being supported by the scaffolding of continuity of government that currently exists within the United States, where local level law enforcement is being empowered to do exactly what their job is. They're being empowered to take down the criminals. They're being empowered to make high volume arrests. They're being empowered to attack the cancer at its source. Just today, Operation Reclaim and Rebuild in California netted more than 300 human trafficking arrests. We now have hotel chains identifying attorneys in various areas up to and including, attorneys and businesses up to and including commercial restaurants saying they're involved in human trafficking. These operations are succeeding. In other news, switching off of the human trafficking discussion, Russia and the coalition in Europe have also been tackling this very issue. I recently shared a video of a Russian soldier giving a brief interview after what was discovered in a town called Izum, Ukraine. In Izum, children were being taken into a satanic sacrifice chamber, and unimaginable evil was being done to them. The Russians liberated the facility. Unknown how many children were saved and how many were no longer alive by the time they arrived. But this is a great deal of why Putin will be moving into a next phase, and they have actually begun that very process. Between the satanic child trafficking and kidnapping and bioterrorism, the Russian military coalition, actively formed and ready for battle, will be taking the whole of the Ukrainian countryside and sparking off a much more escalated level of this conflict. Kiev, Ukraine is home to some of the world's foremost pharmaceutical research and development organizations. We know, and Anons have known for a long time, that big pharma and big pharmaceuticals is primarily a front for bioweaponization of pathogens, essentially where they create a disease and then they create the cure for the disease. Not unlike the format Mr. Bill Gates used when he designed the Microsoft system, then designed a virus for the system, and then designed the Norton antivirus program, which was sold separately to deal with the security breaches which were created in the Windows operating system. Sort of the same principle. Based on my research, it appears that we have NATO black hats, including US military black hats, British military black hats, and Polish military black hats, who are involved in a feeble attempt to relocate biological agents and biological materials out of Ukraine and into protected sovereign territories. It is my belief that Russia will not allow this. In fact, it is my belief that this is a major reason we're going to see an escalation in the conflict. We have rhetoric from NATO discussing a direct war with Russia. I believe it was the Secretary General of NATO discussing that they are prepared for a full armed conflict with Russia. These individuals are desperate, and they will attempt to have their world war in order to stop what is coming for them. The beautiful part in this is that they will fail. Too much of the world is awake, and more are waking every day. Those in Europe have been experiencing conditions that have not been experienced since the 1940s, and they are very awake. French citizens demand the country leave NATO. German citizens demand the government become more energy independent and not so reliant. And yet we see disastrous political moves being made at the very top, the tops of those governments, I should say, driving us towards what is clearly an escalated conflict situation. Some of those governments have been put into submission and will experience last-minute changes of heart. I have reported that the French government would be an aggravator of this conflict, but would eventually disempower NATO. I do not come off of that, and I believe that case will arise as we come to critical junctions this year. Additionally, Turkey is poised to leave NATO and has just recently downvoted Sweden's admission into the NATO alliance. I encourage each of you to look into the history of the monarchies of Sweden. Look at the connections, particularly to other monarchies in the Western world. There is a reason that Turkey is stonewalling their admission into the NATO alliance. Interestingly, we have Five Eye mercenary intelligence community assets that are popping off in Turkey, attempting to destabilize things, and more are becoming active as we lead up towards the Turkish elections this May. It is my opinion we will experience much more turmoil within the borders of Turkey. This deep state cabal simply cannot afford to lose Turkey's membership in NATO and Turkey's loyalties and alliance to the other side. It is worth noting that they already have, and any attempts over the next few months to destabilize will have the ultimate goal of attempting to reclaim power within the Turkish office of the presidency and the prime ministership. Interestingly, Middle Eastern alliances are beginning to form, and we're seeing conflict returning to the Middle East in a big way. Patriots within Iran have lined out agreements, both economic and militarily, with Russia. I apologize. One moment. My apologies. My recording setup this evening is just slightly different based on the considerations of what's been going on with my back. And I managed to knock over a cascading effect of several things off this side table. I apologize. Coming back to where we were, the discussion with Turkey is a critical discussion for the deep state. The economic alliances that have been formed in the Middle East are becoming military alliances rather quickly. That situation will only intensify and will become more polarized as we go forward. Recently, Prime Minister Netanyahu made an unscheduled trip to the Kingdom of Jordan. Based on the things that I'm finding, there was much more discussed at that trip than simple reassurances regarding the Temple Mount. We're seeing very interesting correlations come, and we will see many more before it's over. China in recent weeks has been lining out their position in the Middle East, forging economic alliances with the Taliban, forging economic alliances with Saudi Arabia, and becoming the world's largest purchaser of liquefied natural gas. At the same time this is occurring, Russia and the Taliban have been ironing out military assistance whereby some of the equipment sent to or left in the possession of the Taliban in Afghanistan, the US military equipment, will be transported and used in Russia and will be used against the deep state's own military capabilities. You are witnessing a coordinated operation to destroy the ability of the deep state to make war into the future. At the same time, you are witnessing a redistribution of power, particularly military power, to better preserve and protect key players in this alliance going forward. Russia does not wish to expose its economy to the situation happening in the world more than it needs to. And because of the BRICS alliance and equipment from the Taliban and other countries, to include Beijing, China, their exposure has been minimized while their impact physically on the battlefield is being maximized. Things are falling apart for the deep state at all levels. The military alliance throughout the world sort of eviscerating them slowly, allowing the narrative control to come down, forcing them into situations where they must take increasingly more desperate actions and where they can no longer hide. So effective is our plan that we're witnessing deep state assets in various governments around the world begin to see the writing on the wall. And they're beginning to approach other deep state governments with questions. And they're also defecting to the military alliance and allowing themselves to be put into submission in the background by patriots who will help right this world. We recently saw this with the Argentinian government having snap talks with the German government. Much more is coming of that simply because of the historical connections between Argentina and the Nazi world order or New World Order. Additionally, I believe we're going to see Jordan come to the forefront as a key player in the Mediterranean very soon and in the Middle East. And I expect a combined alliance with Jordan and Saudi Arabia to destroy various Mossad and deep state strongholds, both within their own borders and through the Middle East area of the world. We have been witnessing in real time a battle for good and evil. We have been experiencing in real time a period in which the roaches are drawn into the light because the bait given is simply too sweet. The choices presented are simply impossible for them to field. The positions that they have been put into are indefensible and untenable. As all of this occurs, the world economy is shifting in a way that sees the devaluation of the petrodollar, including recently the dollar's reset on the US debt clock to a $0 value pertaining to oil, gold, and silver, energy, and precious metals. The two primary sectors of society that allow an organized societal system to move forward. You cannot have government of the people, by the people, and for the people if you do not control how those areas of commerce and value in our world are interacted and exchanged. We are achieving more and more control. On the subject of achieving control, we're going to switch gears for this evening to our last major topic. Several decodes from the commander-in-chief himself discussing where we're at and where we are likely headed. February 1st, 2023 at 6:17 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Donald J. Trump truthed an endorsement for Mr. Jim Banks. Mr. Banks running for the United States Senate from Indiana. Strong on the border, crime, our military, and our vets. Jim will fight for low taxes and regulations, sanity in government, and our under siege Second Amendment. Respected by all, will never let you down, and has my complete and total endorsement. I then noticed that this evening at 7:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, President Trump retweeted Mr. Banks' response, what is arguably Mr. Banks' response, which said, President Trump was the first president of my lifetime to confront the China threat and put working families in Indiana and across the country first. He strengthened the military, America standing on the world stage, secured the border, grew our economy. But in just 2 years, we've seen much of that progress wiped out by Joe Biden and the Democrats' radical agenda. I'm grateful to President Trump for his support and look forward to fighting for the America First agenda in the U.S. Senate. The share included Trump's original post posted at 7:41 Eastern Standard Time. So I went over to the Q boards and put in 7:41. And fascinatingly enough, we have a double confirmed stringer within this post discussing a very interesting topic. Just today, news broke that the Supreme Court would reconsider the petition for the Brunson case on February the 17th. I've said several times that regardless of what happens in the Brunson case, it is happening at the behest of a coordinated military operation that suspended the levers of power at the very, very top of American society, but is allowing for all national essential functions, including the judiciary, to function normally at various levels. Post 741 having a delta of February the 12th of 2018, coming up on 5 years, posted at 1:22 and 16 seconds. The fact Q brought up Ginsburg and then she landed on CNN the same day front page speaks volumes. We are missing something. Q's response, here to stay. No, you're not. Now, what's fascinating about this post is it's discussing control of the U.S. Supreme Court, particularly under the lens of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. But we know that Q is riddled with multiple meaning across dimensionalities and is used as a communications soundboard, if you will, a cipher, to help all of us track where these operations are in real time. This is post 741, but if you look at the timestamp 1:22 and 16 seconds, if you were to reverse that and add each numerical combination, you would get 741 in reverse. 1, 2 plus 2, 4, 1 plus 6, 7. It's very apparent to me, and I hope to each of you, that this cannot be coincidence. The commander-in-chief retruthing today in a fashion to highlight the Supreme Court in such a way that it is sort of unmistakable, the same day that the Supreme Court announces it will reconsider the petition on 217. We have control of the Supreme Court at the very top. We are witnessing a coordinated military operation to allow the levers of justice to function appropriately as they were designed. We literally put the country into safe mode through devolution and continuity of government and insulation of the lawful Republic of the United States. Now it gets even more interesting. Continuing with 741, I backchecked that particular timestamp and came up with only 3 Q drops. I apologize. Came up with 15 Q drops. The most fascinating drop having a delta of today, a 3-year delta tying back to February the 1st of 2020, 11:17 and 41 seconds, 741. The post contains 2 news articles. Article 1, the Miami Herald, number 2379 59369. That particular article, we come over here, entitled, I'm Not Afraid of You, Bibby McCarcel Powell Embraces Trump Impeachment Role. Article published December 4th of 2019. Article number 2 from the Miami Herald, number 214974800. Title of this particular article. There we go. Congress candidate's husband has financial ties to scandal-plagued Ukrainian oligarch. Article written July 16th, 2018, approximately a year and a half before. That very oligarch was raided in Ukraine. That very oligarch has been accused of ordering contract killings. It is apparent to me that 45 is telling us that we retain control of the United States Supreme Court, or we have control, I should say, of the United States Supreme Court. And one of the things that will come from that is the exposure of foreign national security interests superseding and being allowed to take control over our own U.S. national security. Seasoned Anons and Patriots are very well aware of what happened under President Hussein Obama. The war crimes that went on all around the world, to include Ukraine, and the establishment, or excuse me, the refinement, I should say, of control and power within that area of the world to set the world up for what was going to be a very deadly era of war, pathogenic disease, and loss. All of this will come out. And 45 is taking this opportunity, in my assessment, to highlight to us that U.S. national security, which incidentally is directly related to the Brunson case, will be one of the main drivers for seeing real justice. A second decode that gave me intense hope from President 45 dealt with the statement 45 released just today. The Columbia Journalism Review, in no way a conservative publication, conducted an 18-month investigation into the Russia hoax and has just issued its report. It is a staggering, detailed account of the lies, disinformation, and complete lack of journalistic integrity exhibited by the purveyors of fake news at the Washington Compost, sometimes known as the Washington Post, the failing New York Times, and many others. This fake news, with all of its disinformation, had a huge impact on the 2020 presidential election, just one of the many ways that the election was rigged and stolen. This proves once again that the corrupt, woke, radical Democrats stole the 2020 election, making it impossible for that fact to be called the big lie, as the Marxists and communists in our country attempt to portray it. Now, did you catch that? We're going to read that last part again. This proves once again that the corrupt, woke, radical Democrats stole the 2020 election, making it impossible for that fact to be called the big lie, as the Marxists and communists in our country attempt to portray it. Are you noticing something about that? Making it impossible. That should read making it possible. Listen to it one more time. This proves once again that the corrupt, woke, radical Democrats stole the 2020 election, making it possible, correction made, for that fact to be called the big lie as the Marxists and communists in our country attempt to portray it. A very obvious misspelling and misdirection. I came over to the cue boards, typed in the word impossible, and got a very broad search result back. But when I typed in the phrase making it impossible, it returned only 3 posts. One of those posts from May 31 of 2020, post 4363. Insurgency is defined as the organized use of subversion and violence to seize, nullify, or challenge political control. Insurgents seek to subvert or displace the government and completely or partially control the resources and population of a territory. They do so through the use of force, including guerrilla warfare, terrorism, and coercion, propaganda, subversion, and political mobilization. Insurgents fight government forces only to the extent needed to achieve their political aims. Their main effort is not to kill counterinsurgents, but rather to establish a competitive system of control over the population, making it impossible for the government to administer its territory and people. Insurgent activity is therefore designed to weaken government control and legitimacy while increasing insurgent control and influence. Insurgents require supporters, recruits, safe havens, money, supplies, weapons, and intelligence on government actions. A robust insurgency can be waged with the support of just a small percentage of a given population. Counterinsurgency may be defined as comprehensive civilian and military efforts taken to simultaneously defeat and contain insurgency and address its root causes. Address its root causes. It is fascinating that this decode should point to the avenues, or excuse me, to the participants needed, the areas of society needed to effectively wage an insurgency. And propaganda, of course, being one of them, is one of the biggest. Mainstream media is the enemy of the people and the enemy of humanity. Trump's own post discusses disinformation, which is propaganda, the woke radical Democrats, and fake news agencies that participated in an insurgency operation to undermine the legitimacy of the duly and lawfully elected president of the United States. Fascinatingly, drop 746, which corresponds with the timestamp of 746 Eastern Time by this statement from Donald J. Trump, discusses Chris Wallace, Mike Wallace, and the control of mainstream media by higher transgovernmental forces. You cannot make it up. We are living the most incredible, complex, irregular war that has ever been fought in the history of the world, and we are winning. M45 continues to tell us and point out to us that we are retaking and restructuring key areas in order that they may serve the people and not the blackmail, bribery, or personal selfish interests that they have always served. Justice in this country has been a long time coming. Prosperity and the proper reflection of our ability to wage economy and build in infrastructure into the future is more than 100 years overdue. We are advancing. They are running scared. They do not have the ability to withstand this onslaught. We are rooting them out kinetically from their physical hidey holes and destroying their capability to wage war. We are devaluing the economic system that funds the most heinous of evil. And we have completely taken back in everywhere except the mainstream space, the mainstream media space. We have completely taken back the control of information. In recent days, Donald Trump Jr. himself on a podcast on Rumble discussed the biolaboratory work of the Anon bioclandestine. This is incredible. It is unlikely that Trump Jr. was unaware of that reality, but all the more amazing that citizen journalism is being promoted by individuals who are very close to President Donald J. Trump. The United States of America exists in a state of suspended history, if you will, a dual reality system where we're using capabilities made available to us in one reality to shut down, close off, and transition out of the other one. You are living, I am living, we are all living the most incredible time to be alive. We will see things get increasingly more desperate as we move forward from here, as we've discussed a few separate times on files and in various appearances. But in so doing, the remaining portion of the population which is less in my assessment than 30%, 30 to 40%. They will come around quickly, and they may come around unpleasantly in some cases, as the deep state shows itself for who and what it really is, who and what it really serves, and just what its agenda has always been. Justice is coming for the COVID crime. Justice is coming for election treason. But more than that, justice is coming for what has been done to the world since 1871 and 1913, for the billions who have lost their lives to this cabal, for the trillions that have been stolen from we the people, for the diseases they gave us, for the poisons they put in our food, for the way they've warped our spiritual understanding, for the way they altered our calendar and our understanding of the celestial clock that was given to us by the Almighty, and for the burying and subverting of who we really are as beings. That is what this justice is about. We have physical world catalysts which help drive the change. But now, with all of us on board, Patriots, Anons, and we the people everywhere, we have the catalyst for spiritual change that is equal to or greater than those with physical change, in physical change, I should say. We are moving towards Nuremberg 2.0, military justice and tribunals. It's going to be a wonderful time. Hang in there. Stick with it. I'm having to do the same, I promise. I spent a good amount of time in silent prayer, meditation, and just seeking peace over the last 24 hours. And it is incredible, despite the physical condition, what that Spirit of God, that love that sustains all things and provides contentment and peace beyond all understanding, it is truly amazing what it can do, even in just a few seconds or a minute or two of exposure, of truly blending with your soul connection to the God of all things. Things like my health, many of your health out there, economic woes, mental woes, physical world suffering. It's very real and it's very compelling. But it cannot touch the power available to each of us when we are able to extract ourselves from the condition, go within, and appreciate who we really are. We press forward for humanity, for your sleepers, for my little one, for all of your little ones and grandchildren, for those generations that will come after us. We will disempower and destroy the deep state. We will bring them to heel and we will annihilate them. But the process getting there has been decades and decades in the making. And based on the things that I see and that I hope many of you cross-reference and research for yourself, we are progressing at the most rapid pace available, considering just how much and just how big this operation really is, just how much we have to uncover, just how much we have to identify and reclaim, capture, or destroy. just how much we have to repurpose, restructure, and redesign. The sheer level of societal change moving at a breakneck pace. We are being compelled to bring our mass consciousness of awareness into the truth of what this matrix has always been, not only to obliterate the lies, but to build the next reality, a reality of peace and prosperity in this world, which was always meant to be the mantle of humankind, mankind. We are endowed with spiritual power and connected to the force that creates worlds. We are made in the image and likeness of the Holy of Holies. Let us have some pride. Let us have some confidence. Let us look not at the things that are miring us down, but rather seek discernment and look forward. President Trump has told us that the Supreme Court is significant. President Trump has also told us that multiple layers of corruption, which will blow even many awakened patriots away, will be on display for the public to see before this process is over, and will likely force some very desperate and chaotic moves. I believe Q calls them disastrous counter moves from our enemies. They are very afraid. And they should be. We've learned how to think, and we're learning more each day. We've learned how to analyze, dissect, and research, and we're learning more each day. But we've learned what is really at play in the world and just how simplistic and evil it all is. And despite a problem being large and great, despite a problem being expansive, entrenched, and permeated into all areas of society, a simple problem requires a simple solution. We will reshape the earth. No one escapes. And so tonight, as I leave you empowered and full of confidence. I leave you with encouragement. I leave you with love. I have great love for each of you and great love for humanity. It is time we lived in this world in the ways that we were all meant to live. And we are approaching that 0 hour very quickly. Tonight, take solace. Enjoy the things you have. And to the greatest extent, enjoy the process we're all living through. We will help write the history books that will change the future course of mankind. We will help account the truth of what happened in these days. And this time we will get it right. A process that started beneath President Kennedy, the 35th president of the United States, will end under President Donald J. Trump, the commander-in-chief and 45th president of the United States. But we are not done yet. Stay calm under fire. Look for the peace of God that surpasses all understanding as we march forward. And know that you are loved, admired, and protected by a force that evil simply cannot penetrate. I wish each of you peace this evening, and I'll be with you again soon. Thank you, everyone. This is SGAnon. Bye bye.